Hello there, and welcome back to the Endless Kingdom. I'm your novice host, and today on a not-so-critical review, we're going to be doing a follow-up to my Young Justice Seasons 1 and 2 reviews. Young Justice Season 3, Outsiders. Now, for those of you who don't know, Young Justice Outsiders takes place 2 to 3 years after the events of Young Justice Invasions. And I must say, in spite of the fact that the gap is technically shorter than between Seasons 1 and 2, the tone of Young Justice Season 3 is very much darker than in Young Justice Season 2, which is to be expected. For those not in the know, Young Justice was cancelled after its second season due to marketing choices on behalf of Cartoon Network. Rather dumb when you think about it. But thankfully, DC got their own streaming service and decided to revive the franchise as a flagship title. And because of this transfer, the creators of the series were able to have much more freedom than they did under Cartoon Network. And it showed. Things that could only be implied and never shown on Cartoon Network were made center stage when the show was revived as Outsiders. The whole tone of the show definitely indicates that as far as the creators were concerned, the audience for the show had grown up, and they respected that. Now, in terms of the plot, Young Justice Outsiders has two main story arcs for the two halves of the season, both of which deal with the fallout on the world after the events of Season 2. Ever since the end of Invasions, young people around the world are being kidnapped left and right for the hopes that they are metahuman and thus can be transformed and sold to the highest bidder. For those of you who don't know, metahuman is just DC comic in general's term for people with superpowers. And that's where the first story arc comes into play. Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, aka the First Robin, decides to get some old friends together, form a team to take down some metahuman trafficking. The team consists of Artemis, now going by Tigress, Superboy, and Black Lightning, a member of the Justice League who quit the League after a mission gone wrong. They go to the fictional country of Markovia to stop a crime syndicate from dealing in metahumans, and wind up picking up a few themselves. Geoforce, aka Crown Prince Bryon Markov of Markovia. Hothead, obviously rich and spoiled, or was till tragedy he made him wake up. Pointed out to be similar to Superboy a few times. Very interesting. Even more interesting is the other meta they picked up. Halo, a young girl who when we first see was supposedly brought back from the dead. Young Justice has so many characters, it gets kind of crazy. Made even more so during one of the plot lines involving the covert team in the series began with, now led by Miss Martian and the new gods of New Genesis, a recurring faction of heroes from DC lore. Another new character is introduced, Forager, of the Bugs of New Genesis. Very interesting character, especially since we see him go for a bit of culture shock. He has to learn the ways of Earth. And his mental state is not exactly compatible with the way humans think, but that's part of his charm. Similar to Halo, who eventually adopts the name Violet Harper. She's essentially a new entity he created from extraordinary circumstances. Thus has to learn as she goes, both in terms of her powers and in terms of relations, like the one she develops with Bryon over the course of the entire season. Now, Bryon, Halo, and Forager join Nightwing's group as they take down various metahuman traffickers and eventually end up finding Bryon's lost sister, the hero Tara, also known as Tara Markov. And for those of you who know her backstory, well, it plays out a bit in the show after she is rescued during the second half of the season, thanks to the introduction of the newest member for the Light. Deathstroke, aka the mercenary Slade, who in this series has recently taken over for the Assassin's Guild known as the League of Shadows. Which is actually a nice segue into a point I mentioned earlier. When Black Lightning quit, a bunch of other heroes quit as well under the leadership of a Batman. You see, Batman got a little tired of losing to the light, so he decided, with Batman Incorporated working from the shadows, to beat the light however they can. Quite an interesting stir. A dark note throughout, because as it's clear, Batman Incorporated starts to lose the idea of when enough is enough. But I'm getting on a tangent. Let's move on to the other half of the Outsiders. There's that Batman Incorporated it interconnects the first half with. Rather well, too, since the second half of Young Justice Outsiders deals with returning character Beast Boy deciding to form his own team, after he realized that his civilian boss is in fact the apocalyptic agent Granny Goodness. Rather vile old lady from the DC mythos. Gives off the air of sweetness, only to go pure cruelty whenever she wants to reprimand someone. Which is often, but I'm getting off track. After Beast Boy learns of Granny Goodness, he forms the Outsiders, bit of a lesser-known group. The Outsiders starts off with the new members of the team from Invasions, who admittedly didn't get the most screen time. Thanks to Outsiders, they get plenty. Beast Boy, as I mentioned, Wonder Girl, who serves as unofficial second-in-command, Geoforce, Blue Beetle, Kid Flash, aka Impulse from Invasions, and Static. Quite nice to see the Outsiders develop and grow in reputation, and to the point where they're considered just as much of a thorn in the side as the team was. Especially during the last climactic battle of the season, where the Outsiders worked with the team and a few members of the League, including Black Lightning, who stopped the Light's plot for Markovia, which ends in some positive notes and some negative notes, as well as taking advantage of that interconnectivity Young Justice loves. Long plot description on this one, but I'm not complaining, because that's what Outsiders feels like. In spite of the fact that it's the same length as the first season, you feel like there's a lot more going on. What with the metahuman syndicates, the forming of the Outsiders, the planning of Batman Incorporated, as well as the character journeys of strife, turmoil, and self-reflection in the new characters, as well as Black Lightning. He went through a lot, but was all the better for it. Outsiders even carries on the romance subplot, both with the aforementioned relationship between Brion and Halo, and continuing the romance between Superman and Miss Martian, who get engaged during this season. Go for some rocky times during said engagement, but still, gives the show just another dose of realism to help the audience immerse. Yep, this season has a lot of that, from on-screen deaths to manipulations galore, but still the fun action you come to know for Young Justice. In the end, what more could you ask for? But, as I always say, I'm not here to tell you if the show is good or bad. I'm here to state my opinion and through it let you decide if Young Justice Outsiders is something you would like to watch. So, if you think Young Justice Outsiders strikes your fancy, you can find it for easy streaming on HBO Max, along with the rest of the franchise, including Young Justice Season 4, which I'll be reviewing that next. And if you enjoyed this not-so-critical review, you can like the video, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't, and click the notification bell to stay up to date on all future reviews on this channel. And until the next not-so-critical review, I've been your anonymous host, the Endless Kingdom, and I wish you all a good day.